Hello and welcome back to Business Tube, and today's session we are going to be looking at organisation structures, or how they're commonly called organisation hierarchies. Now, just think back to when you looked at motivation and Maslow's hierarchy. Just remember, any hierarchy is just a pyramid. So you just have a pyramid in order of importance, with the most important at the top and the least important at the bottom. So this hierarchy here is a structure of all of the employees within an organisation, with the least important employees at the top and the most important at the bottom. So on here, guys, I've just got on here, you've got lower level employees, then we have assistant supervisors, then we have junior management, middle management, and right at the top we have senior management, and they are called directors, often called the board of directors, and the CEO, which stands for Chief Executive Officer. So these people at the top, these are the ones that make the strategic, long-term, overall decisions for the whole business. Okay, so these are the most important staff at the top. We have middle managers in here, and they would be responsible for a particular department. Maybe they are running human resources or finance, and they're running that particular department, and they're making decisions not for the whole organisation but just for their particular department and their particular issues. And at the bottom you just got your normal workers, who might be customer service workers and just general employees for the business. Okay, and this is what we call an organisation structure. Now, organisation structures, we have two types of organisation structures. We have tall structures and flat structures. Now on here I've got an example of a tall structure, and here we have a flat structure. Now the key difference between both of these are the amount or the levels of management. Now all of these people here, these are managers. Whether they are supervisors, middle managers, or senior managers, these people here are the managers within the business. So a tall structure has many levels of management. These people at the bottom are the workers, the employees, the ones who will be dealing with the customers. Here, in a flat structure, we have few levels of management. Please don't say one. I know it shows one on this picture, but we have few. It's a flat organisation structure, and we have very, very few levels of management in this type of business. Now the next thing that you need to know is about span of control and chain of command. Now I'm going to do chain of command first. And chain of command is just the link. If I had a pen on here now and I drew a link from the top to the bottom, that is the chain of command. So the chain of command in a tall structure is long because the chain has to go through many, many different levels. Okay, and the chain of command is just the order at which the orders, the authority, the communication pass up and down the organisation from the top to the bottom. In a flat organisation structure, we have a short chain of command because it's very, very short, the link from the bottom to the top. The next thing is we have span of control. Now span of control is the number of workers that a manager is directly responsible for. Now I say directly because this manager here is responsible for these two members of staff. So this person's span of control is 2. This manager at the top is not managing these people at the bottom. Okay, these people at the bottom are being managed by these managers here. So you manage the people on the level below what you are. So here we have a narrow span of control because this manager has very few workers that he or she is responsible for. Whereas this manager here has a wide span of control because this manager is responsible for a lot of staff. So if we think a narrow span of control, which is a tall organisation structure, we have few staff to manage. One manager has very few staff to manage. And if we think of a wide span of control, the manager has many, many employees to manage. Now if you're watching this again for revision, just think back to when we did this in the hall and we created these different types of organisation structure. So the tall structure is when you had many of you lined up with many levels of management and a long span of control when we used the rope. Okay, so we had a long span of control. The rope was very, very long from the top to the bottom, and with a flat organisation structure, that is when we just had everybody in a row and just one person as the manager. The rope was very, very short, so we had a short chain of command. Okay, I just got the definitions on here. So this textbook definition of what chain of command and span of control. So chain of command, guys, is the order of authority within an organisation where orders are passed down from the most senior person at the top to the least senior person at the bottom. And the span of control is the number of subordinates, and the subordinates are workers, they're the people beneath you in the hierarchy that a manager is directly responsible for. And remember, it's the people on the immediate level underneath you. It's not everybody else in the organisation below you. Now, you do need to know about the benefits or the advantages and drawbacks to each of those organisation structures. Now, I'm going to do a tall organisation structure with you first of all. So, if we think back to those pictures, the advantages of a tall organisation structure, you have more chance of promotion. Now, why do you have more chance of promotion? Well, because there's more levels of management. That means there's more positions for you to be promoted into. We have more support for the employees in a tall organisation structure. Again, you need to be able to say why. Why? Because a manager has less workers to manage. We have a narrow span of control, remember, in a tall organisation structure. So the manager has less workers to manage, so he can give or she can give more help and more support to each of their workers. Less stress on the managers, again, because they have less workers to manage, so it's easy to watch everybody, it's easy to control everybody, so the manager is less stressed. And the workers can be closely managed, because the manager has fewer staff to manage. We have, again, a narrow span of control, and because we have a narrow span of control, we can control the workers, we can make sure they're doing exactly what we want them to be doing, so there should be less mistakes. There are drawbacks to a tall organisation structure. So a tall organisation structure, because the manager has less workers to manage, because we have that narrow span of control, the workers have less responsibility and empowerment. Now just think why. Now the reason why is because the manager's watching everybody closely. The manager is telling everybody exactly what to do all of the time. The workers don't need to make their own decisions. They're not given responsibility, because if they need to make a decision, all they do is that the manager's there, just go and ask them. Okay? We have slow communication. Now the reason we have slow communication is because we have many, many levels within the hierarchy. We have that long chain of command going through the organisation. The chain of command is long, so the messages take a long time to get passed up to the top of the organisation. So we have slow communication because we have many levels of management. We have less trust on the workers, again, because we have a narrow span of control. So managers have very, very few staff to manage, so they have to trust them less. They give them less empowerment, less decision making, less trust, because they're always watching them, they're always there, they're always keeping an eye on them and watching what they are doing. Workers have less creativity, again, because managers are watching them all the time. And another drawback is very, very expensive. Managers have got high salaries, they earn more money, and because you've got many, many managers and many, many levels of management, a tall organisation structure is very, very expensive. Moving on to a flat organisation structure. So remember, a flat organisation structure, we have few levels of management, and because we have few levels of management, we have a wide span of control. And a wide span of control means that the managers have more employees to manage, and because they have more employees to manage, the workers have more responsibility. So they have more responsibility, more trust, more empowerment, because there's few managers, and the manager cannot possibly watch all of these people. There's just too many. So the manager has to trust the workers. The manager has to give the workers the power to make their own decisions, to solve problems, give them responsibility, delegate work to them. Now, if you think about responsibility, trust, creativity, empowerment, these things are very, very motivating, because they're right at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that level, if you can remember, is what we call self-actualization. So it's very, very motivating for workers in a flat organisation structure. So we have faster communication, again, because we have a short chain of command, so we have less levels of management. So it's very, very quick to communicate from the top of the organisation to the bottom. Again, we have more creativity because the manager's not watching you. The manager just has too many staff to manage, so they cannot watch everybody, so workers can be more creative. and it's cheaper because we have fewer managers, less level of managers, so it's much cheaper for the business. The drawbacks, well, because the managers have so many staff to manage, because they have a wide span of control, the workers, the individual employees, get less help from their managers. So it's there's more chance of mistakes because the workers are getting less support and less help from their manager. We have less chance of promotion because if you think, there's very few levels of management. So if you want to get promoted from the bottom to the top, it's very hard because there's not many positions to get promoted into. Maybe there's only one manager or very few, so that person has to leave and go somewhere else, which could be very unlikely. So it's very difficult to get promoted in a flat organisation structure. And lastly, because the manager has got so many people to manage, we have that wide span of control. They're responsible for watching and managing a lot of people. There is more stress on the managers that can make them feel very stressed. So that is not a good thing for them. The last thing that you need to know is about centralised and decentralisation. So we have centralised decision making. And this slide here is referring to centralised decision making. And this is what we call centralisation. Now, centralisation, I've got this little picture up here, and hopefully you can see that. But this person at the top is in red, and this person here is the manager. They are the ones making all the decisions. So with centralisation, all the decision making is done at the centre. That's why it's called centralisation. All the decisions are either made by the senior management or at the head office. So the head office is in charge. Let's say you have a business that's all throughout the world, in many countries. With centralisation, all the decisions are made at the head office. Let's say the head office is in America. So all the decisions are made at America, and they pass those decisions down to each of the stores or each of the locations. So with a centralised structure, decision making is made at the top of the organisation, i.e. decisions are made by senior managers or at the head office. So the decision making is centralised close to the centre. The benefits of centralisation: managers get to keep full control over decision making because they're the ones making all the decisions. Prevents workers or individuals becoming too independent. You have tight control over everybody. You're the boss, you're the manager, or the head office, and you're just telling everybody exactly what it is that they need to do. Senior managers make sure the business is run exactly the way that they want it to be run, because all the decisions, all the power is at the centre. You're telling everybody what they need to do, so you have full, tight control over the business. The drawbacks: the individual stores are not allowed to make their own decisions. Now, if you're in another country, maybe you know the best way to run that store for your customers, because every country has different needs and different customers. And the managers in those locations should know best how to deal with their particular types of customers. They should know the needs and wants of their customers. Well, the drawback is that they're not allowed to make their own decisions for their customers. All the decisions are coming from the head office, maybe in another country, in America, okay? Or all the decisions are made by the boss, and maybe the boss just doesn't know how to deal with these particular types of customers the best. There's a lack of authority. There's a lack of authority and responsibility for those workers right down at the bottom of the organisation. Thinking back to when we did motivation, workers like to have responsibility, power to make their own decisions, so it can be quite demotivating for them. Again, customer misses the flexibility and speed of decision making to respond to problems at a local level within that particular store. Because if you have a problem or you need to do something, what have you got to do? Well, you've got to go back and you've got to talk to the head office and find out how to deal with that problem, which is very slow, time consuming, and not very flexible. And again, decision making is slow because we're having to communicate either with the manager, who is in control, the senior managers, or the head office. And that's what we call centralisation or centralised structure. Decentralisation or a decentralised structure means that the decision making is what we call devolved. It's given out from the centre, from the head office or the senior managers to the lower level managers or to individual stores in individual locations. So decisions are made closer to the customer because the decisions have been devolved out to the stores. So decision making can be made at a local level, which means you can respond to individual customers much quicker. you know the customers, you're able to deal with their individual problems. We can respond to local circumstances. Maybe in a particular country you have a certain trend. Well, if there's a trend in that country, that store should be able to make their own decision and think, you know what, we're going to follow this trend. We're going to sell the products that are in fashion at the moment because they're allowed to make their own decisions. And it should improve staff motivation because staff are empowered to make their own decisions. That makes them feel good, it gives them responsibility. The drawbacks of decentralisation, decentralised decision making, is that it's harder to ensure consistent practices and consistent working throughout the whole organisation because each location, each manager might be doing their individual things, might be making their own decisions, what they think, and they're all going to be slightly different from each other. It's harder to achieve tight control of staff because you're allowing staff to make their own decisions. It's harder to control people because they're all doing different things, and that may mean that some people are spending more money than others. You don't have as much control over the costs within the business, and again, less control by senior managers. And like I've got on here, those decisions may not be in the best interest of the business. Maybe they're going to make mistakes. Maybe they're spending too much money. Okay guys, I hope you found that podcast useful on organisation structures and decentralisation and centralisation, and I'll see you next time.